Hello, everybody. I'm Horse.
And I'm Seagrass.
Today, we are here to steal your chocolate cake. Just kidding.
Today, we're actually going to be talking about the philosophy of emotions, changes in medical ethics over the years, when one should wake up in the morning, and an undisclosed discussion.
Yes. Okay, so let us start off with the what if question, as always. Today's question is, what if we believe sadness was a form of happiness?
I love this question so much.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, according to a quick Google search, the definition of being sad is feeling or showing sorrow. It's like literally being unhappy. Sadness is literally the opposite of happiness. So if sadness was a form of happiness, I'm not sure how logic works.
Like, sadness is a form of happiness.
Oh, really?
I feel like sadness is just muted happiness because if we didn't have sadness, we wouldn't have happiness. If no
So
one
like,
experienced sadness, you wouldn't know what happiness is. Happiness would just be normal. If we never experienced pain, we would not know what normalcy or pleasure is. And if like sadness helps us understand happiness, and without a little sadness, a little happiness would be sadness, Like without sadness, being less happy but still happy would be sadness. So there's sadness will always exist. There's no way sadness like cannot exist.
oh,
Because like when you were like 1 years old, like 2 years old maybe, like stubbing your toe was the saddest thing that has ever happened to most people. Like most people, like some people have gone through a lot in their lives when they were 2 years old. But
ah,
majority of
oh,
people, the worst thing that's happened is that like you hurt yourself.
I see. Well, what I was thinking when I was thinking about this question was that if you considered sadness to be a form of happiness, then you would think of it as something you enjoy. And then I feel like that would sort of take away the pain part of it. I was thinking that that might make you like mask the pain, and which could be very harmful because like pain is there for a reason, so like you don't get hurt. But
Mhm.
if you recognize pain as something that you enjoy, you want to like do things that we enjoy, right? If you just keep on being sad and like that's like causing you like, I don't know, mental like emotional pain, and you
But
don't
it's
know
happy.
about it.
But it's
But
happy because like it just contradicts yourself. Because if you were striving to be sad, then it would not be being sad at all.
wait, what?
Because if you're trying to be sad and if you enjoy pain, you can say pain. If we got happiness from pain, we would die very quickly. Like the human
Yeah.
population would die. But there's no possible way that sadness is happiness for someone, because then if you keep trying to be sad, you're always going to be happy. And once you reach that sad point, once you start feeling sadness, you'll feel happy immediately after because you've achieved sadness.
Okay, I've never been so confused in my life. This is so
I
confusing
mean,
right
if you,
now.
if you think of it as like emotional trauma, like if you put like
Bruh.
sadness as like, I'm gonna get together and break up with everyone just so I can feel sad about it,
Oh.
then there's no point, because then technically we all have the choice to be sad. Like I can be sad about anything. Like I can say that, oh my gosh, I don't know, I got like the best possible achievement in a certain field possible, but I can still be sad about it. Like there's always a con to everything. So you can be sad about
Oh.
anything, right? I can get
Oh.
the best, I can get the Nobel Prize, and I can be like, oh, well, now I'm famous, and fame comes with like a bunch of things. Like I don't want to be famous, but then what do you want then? Because like it wasn't this your dream to like get a Nobel Prize, but then you can always focus on the negative. You can always be sad about happiness, technically. But we make like the
Oh.
conscious decision to not be sad about something.
That is very interesting. If sadness was a form of happiness, then maybe people would have permission to be sad. Because, like, if you won the Nobel Prize and you were sad, I bet a lot of people would like to kick you down from that throne and be like, yo, if you're sad, why don't you give it to me, man? That's very
Would they
interesting.
reveal it though? Would they reveal that they're sad about it? But they're not going to be like going to interviews and being like, "Hey, I'm sad about my Nobel Prize." No.
well, sadness is a form of happiness right now. So they're not sad. They're happy right now. Wait,
Then they're
well,
gonna be sad. It's a paradox now.
I think we just created a paradox. Someone slapped this on like Wikipedia or something. Should we write an article later?
Oh my god. Okay, well, I
So,
quite
so
the conversation, I think.
for it, yes, this is
I
very
think I covered it. It's so hard though, because like either you create a paradox or you say that pain is happiness, and then we'd like strive for pain, in which case we'd die. And then there's like
uh,
because you can't if you take it literally, then there's a
right.
paradox that comes up. So
There, oh, that was me. I took it literally, and I've been so confused for like the past few minutes.
I didn't think you were gonna take it literally. That's why I came up with like the whole like we can always focus on the negative and sadness is just muted happiness because sadness makes us enjoy happiness in the first place.
Oh, I was thinking that if sadness was a form of happiness, then maybe it would be a form of like toxic happiness because
Mm.
like you're supposed to be feeling some sort of pain. Like when you're sad, it's because something is wrong. And like you need to feel sad so you can like acknowledge that something is wrong and that you need to go fix something. But like if you think that you're happy and when you're like happy like nothing you just enjoy it like nothing is really wrong so like it doesn't like register it's and so like then you don't go and fix what's wrong and then that just sort of like like accumulates in your life and now you just have all of these like accumulated wounds and like that's not good for you and it's harming you.
That makes sense. But the thing is that is there a certain point in which you just break?
Probably. I feel like
But then that means that sadness isn't a form of happiness anymore.
uh
If
then
you
what is
break because like take toxic productivity for example, like there is a point in which you will mentally break down at one point,
oh
right?
um,
So
and
like
then it
if you
becomes
associate the same thing with sadness, then that means there is a point like toxic happiness, like you're a sadist, like you're getting pleasure from your sadness, but
ah
oh it's so odd, but so like you're sabotaging all of the happiness, the quote I'm doing air quotes right now, happiness that is in your life. But then you're happy. Like, there is no such thing as toxic happiness. The paradox comes up again.
we have two paradoxes now. Oh my god.
Oh,
We're so smart.
look at us. You created a question that we can't answer. Well, that's the whole point. But
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes. Well, like toxic productivity, like there's like a point where you become like unproductive and it ain't productivity anymore. And it's just burnout in a mess in your life.
do you think you can have like emotional burnout? Definitely.
Yeah.
I bet that that's a
Can
term.
you?
Like you can totally have emotional burnout. That like, for
What would
example, like you take care of other people's emotions. You're constantly dealing with your own emotions so much. Emotional burnout is depression. Hold on.
Oh really?
I
Oh.
bet. Because like, what would you describe emotional burnout as?
Just like shutting off, I guess. Just like you just don't feel anything anymore. Cause like when you're like burnout for like productivity, you just like don't like like want to do your work. You nothing like you don't enjoy it or and like you can't bring yourself to feel any. Well, maybe that's just me, but like you just feel like really bored or like you just feel like defeated and you can't function. That does sound like depression. Okay, you have
Yeah,
a
because then
point.
if you're emotionless and you're making yourself not feel emotions, that means you're like cutting yourself off from your relationships in your life. You're like cutting
Right?
yourself off from your work. If you have no emotion, you have no reason to live.
They should. People, you know how like when people burn out, like the advice is always like to prevent burnout. Like the advice is always to like do like daily self-care. So like for like in the long term, I wonder. I wonder if there's like emotional self-care that people should do to like prevent.
Isn't that just alone time? Like cutting,
Oh, really? Oh,
you know,
but
like
isn't there a point where it like makes
meditation?
it worse? Like, like
Meditation?
oh, meditation. Yes, meditation is great.
Because that way, like you're not feeling emotions from your work. Like you're not getting like stress out of like your work, school, whatever, but you're also not getting like like the other type of emotional stress that comes from like actual relationships that are going on in your life.
Oh,
You take a
yes.
break from both of them, then you're doing nothing.
Oh, yes, just do nothing. I wonder, people should be allowed to do nothing. I think that sort of goes back to like, sadness being a form of muted happiness. Like when you're sad, you sort of have an excuse to not meet other people's like demands. Like, if you're crying, no one's gonna be like, yo, you have like a test. Actually, maybe
Um,
your teacher would be like that. Because
I
you're
mean, it
crying
depends.
through.
How sad are you? Are you sad over like a breakup? Like, okay, come on, pick yourself up, take this test, now go wallow in your misery, you know? But like just postpone your sadness a little bit. If you're like legitimately have clinical depression and you legitimately cannot bring yourself to do anything, that's a different story. You need help. Like that's different. I don't think
Oh,
people will excuse you. Like you will have to do your task at one point, but I feel like you're excused if you're sad. You're kind of excused from like things in like the short term. Like I don't think we can use school as an example because that we
oh
like have to
yeah.
do. Unless you want to drop out, then you have to do it.
Yeah,
But
that was a bad example. It
I
was
guess
just,
like you're obligated to like have alone time. You're like like your
yeah,
friends are obligated to help you. Like they are not gonna burden you with their silly problems if you're going through something bigger, right?
yeah,
Like you're
like
not
you're
gonna be
not,
like, what dress should I wear to this party when you're like, oh my god, like my parents are breaking up. I don't know, but you're
yeah.
not.
I feel like where this question came from, I think it sort of reflects like the current like cultural like in society, they always emphasize like positive emotions, and it
Mm,
sort of feels like, you shouldn't feel sad. Like, don't let that negativity get to you. But like, I feel like at some point, like, it's okay to feel like negative emotions, just like to a certain point. But like I feel like the problem is that we're we're like telling people to just like totally shut it out, and like the desirable person who like works well with others and is productive and like gets stuff done has like all is like
mm.
optimistic like 1,000% of the time. But like even those kind of people probably are they probably also have like little
I feel like
so
that's a
I
very
feel like
like cliche advice you get, you know? It's like be optimistic. Like how? Sometimes like you need to give steps to how to be optimistic. Like focus on the bright side. Okay, I thought about it. I think the cons outweigh the pros here, all right? Like I can't focus on like the one pro when there are 10 cons. And when you can't make any pros, and how am I supposed to look on the bright side when like the darkness is overshadowing it?
yeah, I feel like considering sadness as a form of happiness could potentially be very harmful in that sense to people, who like were
Aside the
were
paradox, of course. It's hurtful, yeah.
well, that was very interesting.
That was very. I knew this was gonna be very. It was very long.
Ah,
Okay, next
well,
one. All right. Well, that was quite the deep discussion. Let's transition.
Yes.
It was quite deep. Yes, it made us think a lot.
Really
Mm,
did. Yeah,
yeah.
I liked that one. That was good. Yes.
Now let's transition into talking about changes in medical ethics over the years and hope that I do not get thrown into an even deeper existential crisis. So, um,
Well, we're already a horse and some seagrass. How much worse can it get?
oh no. Okay, so where should we start? I feel like we should probably just start with like the very beginning.
The
Maybe we
very
could just start at the
beginning
very
of the
beginning of
universe. Once upon a time, time
oh,
long
a little bit
ago.
farther, maybe like a few billion years later. Um,
Maybe when
Two
the earth
billion
has
years
been formed.
later, medicine was invented. What are like the ethics for it? And then we can like go all the way into like today's time and what ethics in the pandemic time means.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I think I actually don't have information about ethics from like the very beginning of medicine. I actually don't know when it first started. But like I did see this article the other day, about how in the 5th century BCE there was like the Greek physician how do you say his name? Hippocrates?
Oh, Hippocrates. Hippocrates.
Hippocrates, yes, that guy. Yes, he stated that the purpose of medicine was to relieve suffering and promote well being in a relationship of fidelity with the patient. And he heavily emphasized that medicine should do no harm. And like he made this whole like oath, the Hippocratic Hippo,
Oh,
wait,
Hippocratic oath.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So, according to my big fat book, it's technically called the
sleepiest.
Medicine Book by the Big Ideas Simply Explained. And okay, I'm gonna quote them now, so don't sue me. Okay, it's a
Okay.
great book. Get it. Not
Ah,
sponsored, but if you'd like to sponsor us, we're open. Why am I doing this? All right. Quote: Ancient medical practice was largely rooted in the belief that disease was caused by malevolent spirits or inflicted as a punishment by the gods. Most attempts to heal an illness usually involve ritual and prayer rather than any real attempt at medicinal cure. End quote. So basically, that's like how it started, but then Hippocrates kind of like changed the whole thing. Quote: Hippocrates rejects superstition, emphasizes disease as a natural phenomenon, and seeks to find its causes. Hippocrates applies a rational approach to medicine, using powers of logic and observation to assess disease. The lays of this lays the foundation for a new holistic style of medicine with an emphasis on prognosis and treatment. End quote.
amazing. Okay, I'll read the oath now. And like disclaimer, I searched up the pronunciations of the names of like the gods, but in the short span of like 8 seconds, I forgot. So like, I'm sorry, but here we go. I swear by Apollo the physician, and Asclepius and Hygeia, and Panthea, and all the gods and goddesses as my witnesses, that, according to my ability and judgment, I'll keep this oath and this contract to hold him who taught me this art equally dear to me as my parents, to be a partner in life with him, and to fulfill his needs when required, to look upon his offspring as equals to my own siblings, and to teach them this art if they shall wish to learn it, without fee or contract, and that by the set rules, lectures, and every mode of instruction, I will impart a knowledge of the art to my own sons and those of my teachers, and to students bound by this contract, and having sworn the oath to the law of medicine, but to no others. I will use those dietary regimens which will benefit my patient according to my greatest ability and judgment, and I will do no harm or injustice to them. I will not give a lethal drug to anyone if I am asked, nor will I advise such a plan, and similarly, I will not give a woman a pessary to cause an abortion. In purity and according to divine law will I carry out my life and my art. I will not use the knife, even upon those suffering from stones, but I will leave this to those who are trained in this craft. Into whatever homes I go, I will enter them for the benefit of the sick, avoiding any voluntary act of impropriety of corruption, including the seduction of women and men, whether they are free men or slaves, so long as I maintain this oath faithfully and without corruption, may I be granted to me to partake of life fully and the practice of my art, gaining the respect of all men for all time. However, should I transgress this oath and violate it, may the opposite be my fate.
Wow.
Yes. Am I bound to this oath now that I read it?
I mean, it's not bad.
Yeah, but it does reflect some. You do see some differences in medical ethics. Like the oath said that you can't give women like medicine to make them have an abortion, but like now you can have abortions. Like that's like a
Yeah.
right. At least in the United States, it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think you're bound to. You're not like holding a Bible or anything, are you?
I am not.
Well, and also basically, if you don't know, Hippocrates, he founded a medical school in his native like island Kos, and he basically developed and taught like the theory of like the four humors, which are of
Oh,
course like blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and then
yum yum.
which are all necessary for good health.
Yes,
Right? And
yes,
like
Hippocrates. Yes,
okay, so the rival medical school is like the Canadian school, I think that's what it's called. Um,
Canadians.
Canadian.
Oh,
Um, or Snidian. I don't even know honestly. Like,
if
well,
they're
basically Hippocrates was different in that he saw the body as like a single system, whereas they saw it as
oh
like isolated parts that you had to like connect. Whereas he saw it as like the whole puzzle instead of puzzle pieces.
oh, good for him.
It's quite interesting, honestly.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the body is kind of both. It's like each of your systems are both very both? What? All all of your systems each have like their own components. And like but like your body's components are your systems, it's just the levels of biological organization. Not
I mean,
me who's been memorizing biology textbooks.
oh my gosh. We're not going to talk about that.
Oh, well, in ancient Europe, there were surgeons who were dissecting live human bodies. And they were like
Yeah.
usually the bodies of like war prisoners, and they didn't have
Mhm.
like anesthesia because it wasn't invented.
That
What a
sounds
great
terrible.
excuse. Oh my god, yeah.
That sounds,
So
oh my
like
God.
anesthesia was actually invented because some of the influential doctors of that time decided that it was very inhumane and cruel to dissect people live without giving them any sort of like, you know,
I love how they thought that dissecting dead bodies was not okay, but dissecting live human bodies was.
oh my god.
Like,
Insert meme of like the meme man in Logic's decay.
oh my God. Like, honestly, I get that, like, you want to, like, preserve, like, dead people, like, just, like, for sacred purposes. But, like, if you, like, don't take bodies, like, if the family doesn't want it or, like, they didn't want it, when they were
Yeah.
alive, but how is even if they did not give permission, they're still dead. It's not like you're taking another life. Like there's way more risk when you're
Yeah.
dissecting a live body and you do not know what you are doing to kill
Oh
another
my
being.
God.
Like, is it worse to kill another being or to literally just like ruin a little bit of sacredness? You know?
I think for them, to try and understand their point of view, I think it's worse to ruin a little sacredness because, like, they're very
Mhm.
devoted to their religion. And, they're like,
But their
what?
religion says killing people is bad, and I know they're trying to help, but honestly, helping is that really helping?
No, I don't think so. But,
They had an interesting mind.
yeah, well, I think in their mindset, in their society, like war was very normal. If you wanted the resources, you had to like go and fight and like get it. And like, if you wanted power, just go conquer that neighboring country. No problemo.
Oh, of course.
So like I feel like for them they're like, oh, it's just some, prisoners left over from the war. Like I don't think they thought very much about it because like it was like their very normal life for them. But like at
Yeah,
least somebody decided to invent anesthesia.
right. So we basically know like the ancient part of it now, all of the dissecting human bodies, and there wasn't like much. Like after dissecting human bodies was fine, it was like not much happened. I mean, like in the 1930s, basically the medicine was seen as like a very paternalistic, I think that's the word, like profession. Basically, what happened was that doctors gave advice, patients received the advice, and they were expected to do what the doctor said. But the thing was that the patients might have been enrolled in like experiments and research projects without
Oh,
them knowing. Um,
right. Yeah.
yeah, and doctors used to just do that. And then after World War II, that was like insane. Like uh the everyone like learned about how in World War II the German doctors like that worked in
Yeah, yeah,
Jewish
yeah.
concentration camps, like they were conducting like deadly experiments in which the subjects like had no say, of course, like none of them had say
Yeah.
to anything. And then after like to write, like quoting medscape.com, to write efforts to right these wrongs enshrined in the Nuremberg Code signaled the beginning of modern medical ethics.
Yes,
Unquote.
yes. Yeah,
Yes,
there
yes.
was a trial, and it was called like the doctor's trial in the city of Nuremberg. So like that's where the code's name comes from. And it was written in 1948, and it like outlined the ethical principles for human experimentation in medical research. And like
Mhm.
later in 1964, there was also the Helsinki Declaration, which was
Mhm.
another landmark declaration on the ethics of biomedical research. And that declaration stated that research in humans should be based on research from lab and animal experimentation. Like you had to like go through all of that first before you could actually like try something on the human. And then the research protocols should be reviewed by an independent and competent committee prior to the initiation of research. And now it's said that the informed consent from human participants is mandatory. And
Mm.
you can only carry out the research. Like if you carry out the research, you have to be a medically or scientifically qualified person. Not entirely sure what that means, but probably something like you have a license. And the risk of your research should not exceed the benefits. Like you can't just be like, oh, I have this idea. And I'm gonna tell everybody, like my subjects know what they're doing, but like, they know that like 90% of them are probably gonna die. Like, no, no, stop right there.
Yeah. And then there's also like we can like backtrack a little bit. Wait, did you talk about like the Tuskegee syphilis
Oh
experiment?
no, we did not.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah.
that was
That was like a big one. That and like
oh
Henrietta cells were like Big.
Yes.
I don't know what I think Henrietta tells her a little bit later, but basically, uh, since 1946 to 1972, and in 1972, the like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment that occurred in, of course, Alabama appeared in the
Mm,
media. I'm sorry, I'm not dissing on Alabama, but like seriously, guys, you had too much odd stuff.
just,
At
just
least in the olden days,
yeah, just dissing
not
on the
that
old
long.
guys, not you guys. You know, we're all cool. We're all cool unless you like actually encouraged or like participated in this kind of stuff. Like, not cool, man.
Anyway, yeah, back. So in like 1946 and 1972, when like it was like released to like everyone, the public, research researchers that were like enrolled in, like not enrolled, like they were participating in like the in the study of disease of syphilis in the U.S. Public
Mhm,
Health Service. They
mhm.
basically had been enrolling African Americans that were infected with syphilis uh, under the guise of offering them free healthcare. And they,
Oh
and like
my
even
god.
though like a year after the whole observational study like started, penicillin became the standard treatment for syphilis like the year after it was started, like in
Oh,
1947. But it was actually withheld from the Tuskegee subjects, and they were like actually lied to and given placebos, and because of that, many of them died from this disease.
what
And
the heck?
then yeah, and many of their like wives and children and family members became infected with them. So it was terrible. It caused like it was
This
terrible.
was this was conducted by the government, right?
U.S. Public Health Service. Yep.
So, yes, the public health service.
Yeah, and then so
Well,
like and like especially these like African Americans have been, especially in the US, um,
yeah.
like I don't really know about other countries that much, but I know that in the US, the twisted medical ethics in the past mainly affected African Americans. But the good thing
Mhm.
is that at least like news of Tuskegee and like other kinds of experiments that are like this, in the US, it prompted like these researchers after the whole trial in 1980s to put like really strict limits on how many subjects were treated in research experiments, and also heightened like peer based like review and oversight.
When this like subjects like cause a lot of like public outrage, like the health service, like I think President Clinton in 1977 acknowledged that the study was shameful. It very much was, and he like apologized to the participants and the families, and the government ended up giving out $119 billion as compensation.
At least they got some compensation, but I mean, like, so many lives were lost. Like, you can't
Yeah,
really compensate that, but like,
yeah,
at least they tried.
yeah, yeah.
And then after that, like in the 1970s, a lot of skepticism arose, especially of authority, especially because it was a US public health service that did this.
Yeah,
It wasn't
yeah.
like some private practice in some hospital.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty sketchy, man.
yeah. Like, but then so there was a lot of skepticism of authority that was brought up then, and eventually uh medicine put a new like emphasis on the right of patients to like know what is being done to them and what is happening to them, and if they're
Yeah.
enrolled in research experiments without their knowledge. That prevails today, like quoting Medscape again. Then this new ethical standard, which still prevails today, states that physicians do not automatically know what is best for the patient. And in fact, patients are normally the best people to know what is in their best interest. End quote.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
that sort of reminds me of this other case in the 1990s. I think it was the Terry Schiavo case. And
Mm.
it's like the and like she went into like a like this vegetative state, and like the doctors were like she's probably not gonna wake up, and then her husband was like, well then maybe we should probably take her off life support, be, because like before she had told him that like she doesn't want to be kept alive on machines, but like her parents didn't accept that she was never gonna wake up. So they were like, why would you take her off life support? So like her husband like went through a lot of like legal battles for like 7 years, but like eventually the courts decided that like the courts supported his decision, and like the case established that like when an adult is unable to make decisions for themselves, then like you need like a surrogate decision maker. And like the decision maker can't just like make whatever decision they want. They have to like justify that if the adult in question was still conscious, then they would have picked this. And like the case also raised another like medical ethics question, which is like how to deal with like familial disagreement when like handling a patient. Cause like, well, if you're a doctor and like your patient is in some terrible state, and and like you're like and and you're like, oh, what should I do with the patient? Well, then the the like reasonable answer would be like go to their family. But like what do you do if like their family can't give you an answer? Like what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, that's like a whole nother topic, you know.
Yeah,
And it's yeah,
questions, lots of questions for the listeners to consider.
yeah,
That all of your brains are all
big thing.
are churning with questions and thoughts and just so much good stuff. Get those neurons firing.
Yes. Anyway, let's move on to talking about Henrietta cells. Well, it looks like neither of us looked it up, so I found an article
Oh
from
no!
Johns Hopkins Medicine
Oh my god! Okay, here we
titled "The
go.
Legacy of Henry." So honoring. I combined honoring and Henrietta and made it honoring. Okay. So honoring Henrietta, the legacy of Henrietta Lacks. So this is all I'm going to say from this is from one article. I'm going to paste it in the description box below because I don't want to be sued. Okay. So in
Oh yes.
1951, a young mother of 5 named Henrietta Lacks visited the Johns Hopkins Hospital and complaining of vaginal bleeding. And upon examination, a renowned gynecologist, Dr. Howard Jones, discovered a large malignant tumor on her cervix. And at the time, this hospital was only one of the few hospitals that treated poor African Americans.
Oh.
Anyway, so
Oh.
as medical records show, Mrs. Lax began undergoing radium treatments for her cervical cancer. And at the time, this was the best medical treatment available for this terrible disease. And
Oh.
a sample of her cancer cells were retrieved during a biopsy and were sent to Dr. George Gay's nearby tissue lab. That's how you say that, totally. Anyway, for
Okay.
years, this doctor, a prominent cancer and virus researcher, I can't talk today.
We can't talk today. We both can't talk today. Adam was looking around, but this
In
is
vain. Anyway, so this doctor has been collecting cells from all patients who came into Johns Hopkins Hospital with cervical cancer, but each sample had quickly died in his lab. But then, what he would soon discover was that Mrs. Lax's cells were unlike any of the others he had ever seen.
Oh,
Where the other cells would die, Mrs. Lax cells doubled every 20 to 24 hours. So today, these incredible cells, nicknamed HeLa cells, from the first 2 letters of her first and last names, are used to study the effects of toxins, drugs, hormones, and viruses on the growth of cancer cells without experimenting on humans. They have been used to test the effects of radiation and poisons, to study the human genome, to learn more about how viruses work, and played a crucial role in the development of the polio vaccine. Although Mrs. Lax ultimately passed away on October 4th, 1951, at the age of 31, her cells continue to impact the world. Okay.
Did she know though?
No, she did not know.
Well,
That's the whole point. Like she never knew. It was in like all of these patients that Dr. George Gay, like he took these cells from these patients. They didn't know about it because they were all poor African Americans. They're like, oh, they're not people, like real
oh
people, you
my,
know.
but like
Yeah, it's really important to
today,
like know that legacy of HeLa cells.
I mean, there's still like racism today, right?
Oh, that's like a whole other episode.
I mean, in like medical,
Mm.
as
Okay, so we basically know most of like the big stuff, don't we? Is there anything else I could go over?
I don't think so.
Okay, modern ethics in current use. Oh, yes, we now know that.
Well, I think in modern times, I feel like the healthcare system it's like for profit, right? At least in the United States it is. And medicine is becoming more dependent on like the technology and like the advancing equipment and for like treating difficult diseases, like surgical equipment or like
Mhm,
diagnosis, like those sophisticated scanning stuff.
mhm.
I know my
Yeah.
medical equipment totally. Okay. Like as medicine is becoming like more dependent on like technology, like doctors are becoming more like they decide like patients treatment like more on like what equipment like they have and like what they can afford rather than like what's actually best for the patient, like if the hospital's maybe like low on budget for like this diagnosis thingy that should probably be used on this patient, like maybe the doctor is gonna try go and like prescribe other methods that aren't as good, and like that's not nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just the whole notion of being for profit makes things very vulnerable to being unethical. I don't know
Yeah.
what people do for money because like I don't earn my own money and I'm fortunate enough to
Mm-hmm.
live in a pretty decent like household with a decent amount of wealth, but like you might think that since doctors go to med school and go to college, they're educated. They might be less susceptible
Mm-hmm.
to like unethical practices. But I think the unethical practices in concern to money, like I think it comes from like who's like investing in like the hospital, like the research. Because like I think I saw this documentary the other day about how there was this food scientist funded by Pepsi, or maybe it was Coca-Cola, and and they were literally researching the effects of like soda on like obesity. And if you're funded by a soda company, like they obviously don't want you to find something wrong with their products and put you out of business. So like it seems like research can be twisted that way.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, talking about like clinical research ethics. There's a lot of ethics that go with that, and I think we kind of like touched on a lot of it with like HeLa cells, as well as what was it, the Tuskegee syphilis project thing.
Yeah.
So we kind of, but then there's also like some hot fun topics. I think we can, we kind of talked a lot about the hospital ethics too.
Oh.
So maybe we can talk about like vaccination, because in the case of
Ah.
like for example, like an example, some parents refuse to give measles vaccines to their children, and they're citing baseless claims that it causes autism. But like
Uh,
at first look, it kind of looks like these parents just appear to be like exercising their rights, right? They have a right, and of course, individual rights is a sacred issue for Americans, which
of
makes sense.
course, we don't go nowhere without our rights.
Of course, I mean that technically, I think it's a good idea, but still,
Yeah,
but the thing is,
but like,
the overriding concern is that it's a societal problem. Like unvaccinated children can spread the disease to others, and so like requiring vaccinations thus becomes like a matter of like quote protecting the herd. you know? So we're trying to like protect the general population. And like, why should we stop? Like, because we can't require vaccines because
Oh, why?
it's we can't because it's a violation of people's individual rights. Like
Oh.
they should be allowed to they think that like they should be allowed to control what goes into their body, you know? But at the same
Well, did
time,
you hear that? The food industry?
technically they're in control. They
We are.
they're
Oh,
psychological abuse. I'm kidding.
oh my god. But like like
A
the
whole nother
hidden.
episode. We should really not get into them. We're like having like an hour and a
Uh,
half long
oh
podcast.
my god.
Um
Okay, yes. Trying to stay
anyway,
on topic.
yeah, I think there's a lot of more like current like issues that like is like politicization of firearms in medicine and like cost and utilization of healthcare resources, like discussion of political views with your doctor. Like there's a lot of we'll link these articles in the description box on YouTube if you're listening to this on
Yes.
YouTube. And if you're anywhere else, you'll like listen in the description. If you really want to know more, like look at those articles. Just look up changes in medical ethics on Google. You'll
It's
find a lot about it.
it's really interesting.
It really is. We probably should not talk about this any longer. But
Oh. Okay, so
okay.
that was a very nice discussion. Yes, it's time to get into the productivity corner with discussing what time you should wake up to be the most productive in the morning while not compromising your health. And like first thing I want to say before like we talk about this is that like the time that you wake up and like your morning like really makes your day, even though probably a lot of people don't realize how much of an impact like your morning has on your day. Like I usually wake up at like 5:30 in the morning, but like this morning I woke up at 6:40, so like I couldn't get in like work before I went to summer school. And that like just totally threw off my like day because like I'm like used to being like, in the zone and like productive at like 5:30 in the morning. And then when it hits like 6:40, I'm used to feeling like chill and relaxed and like happy that I got like a productive hour of work done. But like if I'm starting like off with that like chill like state, it sort of just makes me feel like that for the rest of the day. So like the time that you wake up can really have an impact. So when should you wake up?
Yeah, this is like okay, my take on this. That was your take. I think it's really I really do believe too. Like I agree with you. Like, mornings really shape your day. But I feel like it
Yeah.
also depends on like what time your day starts. Because if your school starts at 9 a.m., that's great. Like you can wake up at 6 a.m. and get 2.5 hours of productive work
Going?
in before
Whoa!
you have to leave for school. Like that's insane.
Whoa!
But if you have your school start at 7:30, like is it really worth it to wake up at 4 a.m. and have to sleep at 8 p.m. to get 8 hours of sleep in? Like, is that worth it? Um,
Yeah.
so I feel like it depends on what your routine is and when your day, like air quotes day, like really starts. Um, because if you don't like weekends, for example, you can extend your morning for as long as you really want. Like, you can wake up at 6:30 and have like your time is endless unless you have like classes or anything like weekend classes. But
Yeah,
in that
time.
sense, but I feel like in my perspective, I used to always think of myself as a night owl. Like I love the night, but then so I used to like staying up late. And true, I used to really like just doing my work late in the night, like from like 10 p.m. to like 12.
Oh
Um,
my God!
like I
Wow.
can't think of doing that now anymore, but like I used to do that, and it used to work for me actually. Like I used to be able to do
Wow.
my work, but I realized that it was just the darkness that I like. I really liked working in the dark with like my little desk lamp on. I used to love that whole setting. But
Ah.
now I just moved that to the morning before the sun rises. I work. But the only problem with that I realized is that some days you are more tired than others, and it's like unexpected. Like you don't realize that some days you'll get more tired and you'll do less quality work, and that just doesn't work for me. I kind of realized that. And also the thing is, in the night you can get more distracted. Like sometimes you'll stay down watching TV for longer, or you'll get a call from a friend, or you'll start texting a friend. um, and
Yeah,
then
'cause like your willpower sort of drains as like your day goes, and like we sort of like the way school is structured and like with our generation growing up going to school, like daytime is like for work time and nighttime is where you hang out. So
mhm. I was gonna say something. Oh yeah, okay. It also depends on like what you do in the night. If you're one of those people who doesn't really do much in the night, like that's fine. Like you can sleep like at 9:30 and it's all good for you. And you can wake up at like uh 5:30 and like
5:30?
yeah, and you'll get 8 hours of sleep. It's a great day for you. You have a good productive morning. You have a chill night. Like that's great. But like in like it depends on your case. Like in my case, like I like to talk to my relatives, and like we have a time zone difference, so I have to like talk to them at
Oh,
like 9 p.m. my time. And the days when I used to wake up at 5 a.m., I used to miss talking to like my cousin from like a different
oh,
country, like so like
I see.
because it was her morning, and so she woke up at her own time, um
Right.
And then there's also like what time my friends wake up. Like I'm not being peer pressured, don't worry. But it's just like I want to talk to my friends, and some of my friends like have different family meal times than I do, you know. So they'll come
Yeah.
back upstairs at 9 and I'm going to bed, so I won't get time to talk to them. So like I kind of push that to for me personally. Personally, I would like waking up at 6. I think that's like the ideal time for me. Um,
Nice.
and sleeping at 10 is ideal. But these days that's not been happening, but it's
Yeah, I think people should really experiment with different wake
mm,
up times. 'Cause like one thing might like really work for a certain period of your life. Like maybe like there's like a big test at school and like you really need to get that productive work in and like you feel motivated to wake up earlier because you don't want to fail. But like, if it's like winter break or like summer break, or if you're not in school, I know you're on vacation.
let
Um,
yourself sleep in a bit.
yeah, 'cause like if you don't sleep in then, like when are you going to sleep in? If you don't ever sleep in, then like then literally you can sleep in when you die.
Oh God, that's morbid. I made like a general kind of a list of like what time, like
Yes,
what like the
read it.
characteristics of every time is. I can just talk
Yes,
about it.
please
So
read it. I'm
I'll
curious.
start at 4 a.m. and go to 9 a.m. So
OMG. Oh, 9 a.m. 9 a.m. is very early. Some people wake up at like 12 p.m.
yeah, like that's fine for you if you're having fun and get your work done. Good for you. But
I mean, like people who work like night shifts.
yeah, that's like a complete. We're talking about high school, all right? Let's talk about like middle school, high school people, or like collegers. College. If you're actually in college, this
Collegers.
is like if you're actually in college, do not listen to us. We're middle schoolers, unless you
Wait,
like.
what? We're
I
high
mean, like
schoolers.
listen to us. But oh wait, hold on. We're high school now. High schoolers now.
Is
I mean, listen to us, but like we're young and we're talking in the perspective of like what a high school experience would look like. Um.
just
Anyway, back to my
listen
list of
to
things.
us to reminiscence about your days, your high
Yeah.
school days.
Okay. Anyway, so 4 a.m. Waking up at 4 a.m. is for the people who want less sleep or can function on less sleep and are billionaires or that person
Yeah.
who wakes up at 4 a.m. Um, Waking up at 5 a.m. is a bit early, but really useful if you're really, really busy because of like the quiet, no disturbance. It's very, very good for ideal productivity. Like,
Yep.
okay. Then waking up at 6 a.m. is, in my opinion, the best time, really. And
Yeah.
it's not too early that you have to sleep really, really early, but it's early enough that you can get work done in the quiet. Um, Unless you have school, because then if you like my school will start at 7:30, so I have to be out.
Oh,
I have to be out by 7:10. Like
wow.
7 o'clock really. So when I wake up at 6 a.m., I'll just have to start getting ready immediately. So
Uh,
that's maybe do like some light reading, maybe finish up, like make sure all my work's done, like that kind of stuff, or plan my day,
yeah, I feel like I've
that
gotten
stuff is for like morning, like if I when my school says I won't be able to get like studying done in the morning, but in the summer online school it's all flexible. But okay, back to my list. Waking up at
yes.
7 a.m. is pretty decent for most people actually. Like, but you have to go to if you have to go to work or school really quickly, then you don't have much time before the day really starts. You'll feel kind of rushed and you'll feel kind of frantic in the when you're at school. Because like I can technically get ready and be ready to get out the door in 5 minutes after I wake up, like without taking a bath or anything. I can be
Uh,
ready. But the thing is I'll be a zombie and I will not be functioning at like in the morning in my best mindset. So like I'd
ah,
rather like wake up an hour before school and like even though I don't have that much time to get stuff done, it gives my brain time to refresh. And my planning is that I'm probably gonna just plan my day ahead and make my to-do list that in the morning because that just might help me get set up. Like maybe if I know what I'm gonna do, like take notes for school, I'll just set up the pages and stuff like in the morning. It's not hard work to do right in the morning. But
mhm.
it's yeah. I'm going on a tangent, sorry. But then okay, 8 a.m. Waking up at 8 a.m. is great for sleeping in and when you do not have much to do. Waking up at 9 a.m. is waking up anytime after that is unless you're like a night shift worker or you're like an 8-year-old and you have nothing to do, it's laziness. I'm sorry. Or you're sick. You might be sick. You might be I don't know. Like you might be like there are exceptions to this, but if you're like a normal functioning high schooler, please don't wake up after 9, like after like 10 a.m. unless it's like summer and you have nothing to do.
You'll be late to school. You'll
Yeah.
have a very beautiful tardy record. I'm
Yeah.
sure that will impress colleges.
Oh, and I was like, and then if you're gonna come at us and say weekends I can sleep in like at till 10 a.m. Dude, this is why your Mondays are hard. Do you really want to make Mondays that hard for yourself? Like get up and start again to wake up at like 6 in the morning after you've been sleeping at like 3 in the morning for like 2 days.
Yeah, and I feel like if you wake up later, like you're like later in the day, like you feel like less compelled to like do productive things because like again with the association of later in the day we do like more fun things like maybe you have
You have
like
less time for your productive.
yeah, and like if you're like constantly hitting that snooze button to like sleep in, then like that's really draining your willpower. You probably won't feel very motivated to get productive stuff done and yeah.
Yeah, there's that. There's also like the one thing that like for me at least is that when I wake up, I used to wake up after 9 before I became a productive person, before I had stuff to do, before I was like in elementary school, 6th grade, 7th grade, okay, not 7th grade, not as much, but like 8th grade, you now have to study, but
Oh,
before that,
oh,
I used to wake up later, and when I started doing like had more stuff to do, I realized that that wouldn't work just because I felt like whenever I woke up, it's not only that I had on the weekends it was fine, I guess, but the thing is that that time is kind of reserved in the weekends for family time, and then there's also like the fact that when you wake up that late, even in like online school, like right before class starts, you're not in your best brain, like mindset. You're also,
yeah,
it feels like the
yeah.
world has started without you, in my opinion. I feel like you
Oh,
wake up and like the world is already running. Do not have a head start to the world. Like, I
oh,
like having a head start to the world, is what I like to think of it as.
I think you just pinpointed why productive people like waking up early so much. It makes us
Yeah.
feel like that, we're ahead of the game.
Yeah.
Makes us
Don't
feel
you want to
great.
be ahead of the game? Not today.
Yeah, yeah, that's why we're here. That's why we're in the productivity corner. That's why
Yeah,
we're
we're trying to
not,
get ahead of the game in this little corner over here.
that's why we're not in the procrastination ditch.
Oh my gosh.
Guys,
Well,
next
that was long. basically, we're gonna have this undisclosed discussion another time. And guess what? It's gonna be in a bonus episode because we want to
Yes!
make this up to you. We know that this is gonna be such a fun discussion for you. You know that like we don't want to limit it to like 5 minutes. It's gonna be an entire
Yeah.
bonus episode, and if you want to watch it, stay tuned.
Yes, yes, so we're gonna have 2 episodes. Next week, we'll release on schedule as usual. And while we're gone, y'all just, have a good life. Don't, trip in a sewer and die.
Oh gosh, no.
Good wishes to you.
Yes, good wishes, good wishes.